Right, good morning all, and thank you very much for joining us today for a presentation about one of my favourite expedition cruise destinations, New Guinea and Micronesia. My name's Will. I'm a member of the sales team, usually based up in Cairns, but speaking to you from sunny but pretty chilly Brisbane today. If you want to experience some of the world's most spectacular tropical islands, beaches, marine life, and truly unique cultures and communities, then these series of cruise itineraries will hopefully be exactly what you're looking for. Today, I aim to provide a relatively brief, overview of 5 expedition cruise itineraries focused on the tropical waters of PNG, Micronesia, and the islands of the Coral Triangle. And I've got the expert assistance today of 2 of our guest lecturers, Anne and Steve. Steve grew up in PNG, speaks a bit of the language, and between the 2 of them provide the local expertise and knowledge that Coral is known for providing to our guests whilst on board and exploring these remote locations. If you've got any questions throughout the presentation, please feel free to pop these into the chat function on the computer, and I'll try to address, or both myself, Steve and Anne will try to address these at the end of the expedition overview. I've already got a list of some of the pre-supplied questions that you did when you registered for this webinar, so we'll try and cover those at the end of the preso. Look, before I hand over to Anne and Steve, I just want to provide an overview, particularly for those who have not sailed with Coral previously, about who Coral Expeditions is, and how we've worked over the last 40 years to perfect and crucially deliver that superb, true expedition style products for you, our guests. So for almost 4 decades now, Coral has operated with a single purpose: to take small groups of like-minded explorers to remote places with expert guidance and a true Australian style of hospitality. So what is the expedition experience? What is expedition cruising, first of all? So, across the Coral fleet, no matter the destination, domestic or international, we offer an informal onboard experience with no dressing for dinner, no assigned seating, and no formal onboard entertainment outside our full schedule of presentations and lectures, specific to the areas in which you cruise. If you're looking for, nightclubs, casinos, private butlers, white-jacketed waiters, then the Coral product is probably not what you're looking for. The truly stunning destinations we visit are the main focus of any cruise itinerary, rather than the ship itself. A very different prospect from some of the big cruise ship lines out there. Our ships are flagged and crewed by Australians, admittedly with a sprinkling of Kiwis on board, and we encourage that natural Australian style of service and an open interaction between our guests and crew. One where you can watch your dinner being prepared in our open galleys by our chefs, jump onto the bridge and have a chat with the captain, or just simply sit back and relax in the company of our experienced guest lecturers, expedition leaders, and other like-minded travelers. These are true expedition style trips. So Coral was one of the first cruise operators to employ interpretive guides on our cruises, and it's a tradition that continues today. Each trip includes a mix of our full-time guest lecturers who join the expedition team, and special guest lecturers like Anne and Steve, who are chosen for specific local knowledge. They immerse our guests on the unique wildlife and cultures in the areas that we visit. And that's what expedition cruising with Coral is all about. Every cruise from the Kimberley to PNG and well beyond, we run a full schedule of lectures and presentations by true experts in their fields that allow our guests to truly appreciate the flora, fauna, geology, art and cultures that we visit. Alongside these local experts, our passionate expedition leaders are on board and take our guests on every excursion. And crucially, we don't hand over to land-based tour companies. And we focus on maximising our time ashore with 2 shore excursions daily where possible. These shore excursions, generally have two options. This may vary from, an easy coastal flat beach walk, snorkel or scuba, to a more challenging hike on uneven ground to a viewing point or point of interest, be that a local community or to witness the region's flora and fauna. The point being that we always offer something for everybody, no matter their degree of fitness or specific interest. So now we come to one of the really key aspects of the Coral product. And for those of you attending today who have cruised with Coral previously, be it the Kimberley or beyond, you'll recognize our Explorer tenders. These are unique to Coral expeditions, and we have designed and built these to allow our guests to truly explore the diverse regions in which we travel. They provide the perfect conduit between our ships and the remote regions we visit, and no other cruise line, global or domestic, can offer anything similar. The key selling points of our Explorers are the ability to on and off board our entire ship's complement quickly, in under 5 minutes indeed, so quickly and easily, with no steps or ladders to contend with, and it crucially means no shore excursion wait time. So you're not waiting for your turn to actually jump on land and see the places that you've actually spent a considerable amount of money to pay to see. They're perfectly designed for beach and harbour landings, and ideal to explore the narrow creeks, rivers, bays in comfort and safety. They have padded seats, a roof, crucial in the hot tropical sun, a full audio system so our expedition leaders can provide full commentary of the sites we visit, and importantly, an onboard toilet to avoid having to return to the mothership for regular toilet breaks, which is something that would severely curtail your exploration time. They also double as the perfect snorkel or dive platform, particularly relevant in the series of cruises that we're going to be talking about today. We call them our safari jeeps of the sea, and like I say, the perfect platform to ensure our guests can immerse themselves in the areas that we cruise. So it's also important to note that on all our expedition cruise itineraries, we complement these Explorer tenders with our more traditional Zodiacs. Guests can opt to remain on board our comfy Explorers, or they can opt to jump aboard a Zodiac to get up close and personal with the local wildlife. The side door on our Explorer tenders means the boarding process is super easy, and we've found that a combination of our Explorer, mothership tenders combined with our more traditional Zodiacs allow us to provide that true expedition experience. Again, something which no other cruise line can offer, and allows us to provide a tailored expedition experience for our guests. And so onto the ships. We utilised 2 of our 3 vessels in the fleet on the expedition itineraries we are highlighting today. Coral Expedition, up on the screen now, launched in late 2019, has 60 staterooms, meaning a maximum of 120 guests on board. All cabins are outward facing and en suite, and many have private balconies. On CA, Coral Adventurer, and indeed across the fleet, our ships have been, purpose built to cruise in these tropical waters and offer a range of both in and outdoor dining and bar options, all that so you can continue to enjoy the spectacular vistas and areas in which we cruise. Once we've returned from a long day exploring, usually with a cheeky G&T or cold beer in hand. Coral Geographer. Our newest ship launched very recently in late 2021. It's a sister ship to Coral Adventurer. So again, 60 staterooms and 120 passengers at maximum. Absolutely designed to maximise the outdoor space and provide those multiple areas to sit back and enjoy the vistas on offer. Both ships come with 2 Explorer tenders, again, so we can on and off board our entire ship's complement in under the 5 minutes. And of course, we include the accompanying Zodiacs on board, and they both offer the perfect platform to experience these remote areas that we visit. And with small guest numbers on board, we ensure not to overwhelm the fragile ecosystems and communities we visit. Again, a very different prospect from some of the big ship cruise lines out there. And so on to our guest speakers today, Anne and Steve. They are hopefully going to provide an overview of these cruise itineraries and associated highlights, and are the perfect example of a Coral guest lecturer. We're covering 5 itineraries today. I promise I will try not to go over the 45-minute mark too much. So it's really just a brief overview of what you can expect on any of our cruise series in the PNG and Micronesia region. For further information, please feel free to reach out to us, ask as many questions as you want, speak to our reservations team, download our brochures. We give you full detailed itineraries online on our website, but just to hopefully a little overview to get you excited and hopefully get you on board. So look, Anne and Steve, over to you. Feel free to introduce yourselves, and we'll get on to the first itinerary.
Okay. Well, morning through, Olgeta. Mipla hamamas straight long bungim one time you long this time. Na line you lick long sample a good plus something long this place Papua New Guinea na hap. And
what he said, sorry, just dealing with a phone call. What he said was, hello, everybody. Very happy to meet with you here and share a bit of information about Papua New Guinea and the surrounds.
So that was talk piston. I grew up, went 4 when I went to Papua New Guinea. My dad was a missionary, and 15 when I came back, and Anne and I have been back just for the holiday, and we've also been back. The slide you can see with us, hands raised with a local, is after we've just done a 10-day murderous hike through the Middle Highlands of Papua New Guinea, consulting with various villages on an education program that we were employed to put in place for grade 8 kids who finished grade 8, because that's as far as some of the primary schools went. But I guess in terms of talk pisin, there's the national language which came out of blackbirding of all things, because New Guinea's got over 850 languages. It's very tribal environment, and on we can probably go to the next slide, which has got the destinations. Sorry, go.
Yeah, look, all good. So I'll thank you for the intro, guys, and I will move rapidly on to our first itinerary. So we're going to be talking about the frontier lands of PNG. 12 nights, Cairns to Badang, departs the 17th of December this year. And we also run it in the reverse direction. I'll come on to, in the question section at the end, we do offer some charter flights to some of our more hard to get to kind of joining cities, but I'll deal with that at the end. So away you go, Steve and Anne. Like I say, a relatively brief overview of the major highlights, but the first one is up in front of you now.
Yeah, so I guess quickly, just the talk piston, because it's a combination of all German, Malay, local languages. It's a good example of the microcosm and rich culture of New Guinea. What we're looking at here on Dobu, that's a geothermal vent. I mean, which has got gases coming up from deep in the Earth's mantle up through the crust and seeping out. It sort of indicates the highly volatile area of New Guinea, as opposed to Australia with lots of volcanic activity, quite a lot of earthquakes. So we swim right through this. Sometimes there's a bit of sulfur that comes up, and it actually makes the environment around it quite different to the areas of reef, which can be just only meters adjacent. That's good. We're looking at trobians now, which is a completely interesting, quite different. So New Guinea, with the 850 languages, on that itinerary, just about every location you go to will have gone into a completely different language group. They're very different in terms of their culture and dances, and in particular this area here, where it's quite different to the mainland of Papua New Guinea. But yeah, really good to look at, and the kids really get into it. At Tufi, this is in Oro province. I had one of these canoes when I was 7 and used to poke around fishing with the locals. The fjords of Tufi are the only fjords in PNG. And they're strictly speaking rias, which are flooded ravines. These particular ravines were eroded by lava flows from volcanic explosions. But yeah, so that's the Oro people. Hey, good example of a sing sing, which is the local name for the dancers, and the main drums there you're seeing, they're called kundus. And again, it's one of the great things about this trip, even for me who's lived there a while, is noticing the differences in these sort of dances between each location, some quite subtle, but some quite dramatic. For example, the Trobriand Islands don't use these drums at all. They freelance almost, whereas the kundu is quite common in most of the other areas we go to.
Also, the sing-sings are really integral to the culture. When we were working there, pretty much every village we went to, we were welcomed with these sing-sings, and that's an experience that you'll get on the trip.
Thanks. Again, these are quite traditional canoes you don't see too much of. They're called samuns, which is the word for the outrigger. Been overtaken by banana boats and outboards in most areas, but a few still hang on to these wonderful traditional craft, some of which the bigger versions went, on long open sea distances. We were there for the building of one where I lived, and it took them 5 years because there's different people come and do different bits, and it's very ceremonial, and you have to do things the right way to produce the eventual product. Thanks. Now that's what I grew up to. I moved back to Australia to the wheat fields in Victoria. It was a bit of a shock, but the snorkeling and diving in the waters around these areas is just unbelievable. Some of the best in the world. The visibility is just so great that, if you're a diver, I've sort of been down 30 meters down and thought I was 10. It just crept up on me. It was so clear. So yeah, very pristine, and most trips, we do a lot of this. We're in the water most days, and it's absolutely exquisite. Thank you.
This is one of my favourite topics, is the arts and crafts. Not only the language, but the actual culture varies tremendously across Papua New Guinea and surrounds. So definitely come with the idea of an opportunity to buy arts and crafts from the people on site, which is very important to their small incomes for the year.
So I'd say too that the people are just amazingly welcoming. Like I'm biased because I spent my childhood there, but I mean, Anne, you might be able to comment about, when you just first walked into some villages, what their reaction was.
Absolutely, and in fact, they consider you important, which is just sometimes very humbling. It just and just as you can see, everybody crowding around to be part of this because often the ship might be the only one that comes there, or not every day anyway. So it's a real event to have you there.
You might get a kid just rush up to you, hold your hand, and lead you off to show you something. That's quite common. Thanks, Phil.
Cool. Thank you for that, Anne and Steve. And due to the old time restrictions, we'll move swiftly on to our next cruise itinerary, the islands and atolls of Micronesia. So we've got 25 nights Manila to Cagayan, departing in November later this year. So again, over to you guys.
I guess I'd say to the start of the trip at Cagayan. Cagayan's still probably one of the towns that still reminds me of when I went to New Guinea. Other towns have moved on in various ways, but Cagayan still seems to be as it was a long time ago. And that area was one of the first action in World War One that Australia troops were involved in. So there's a lot of history there. And again, pristine coral atolls, magnificent marine life, corals, sea jellies, fish,
we can swim amongst these ones because their stingers are not big enough to sting us. So pretty amazing experience.
Yep. In this sort of route, I think there's another slide. There's an actual surprising evidence of quite ancient cultures. Evidence of stone arrangements and things like that. Was the areas we're going through in geological or evolutionary or whatever scale you want to use are actually quite recent. So it's actually quite a surprise to see evidence of, quite ancient cultures that existed. Thanks. Now, most people are well aware that World War II came to the Pacific in a big way, and forays were made from there to Australia, more than a lot of people realise, and there's evidence of this all over the place. Wrecks such as this, and even villages you'll go to, they'll have little what they call museums where they've collected shells, helmets, and put them on little platforms, and they're very proud to display, and they're also very proud of their role supporting Australia in particular and allies during those conflicts. But yeah, it's a walking museum, a living museum of that era. Cool. And another part, a big part, as I mentioned when I was talking about the language, about how different cultures and different languages and different countries that are evolved. Hence why I was in New Guinea. The involvement of different missions is also a big part of the history. And in most cases, in some cases, there in the world, the missionaries coming there are seen as being a detriment to the local cultures. They certainly had some impact like that, but if you go there now and you see how deeply religious local people are under their own steam, you know that they've sort of embraced both worlds, if you like, and there are traditional cultural ceremonies very much active, but equally most of Papua New Guinea and Micronesia are extremely religious in the Christian Catholic sense. Yeah, here's a good example of what I meant before of, just something you thought you might see in Cambodia or in South America. You just stumble across this ancient city, which is about 900 years old, which is completely, nothing I would expect in where we go. But all these itineraries throw up little surprises here, there, and everywhere, and this is definitely one of them. It's pretty impressive. They had to canoe in these huge stones to their site because there wasn't any there, so it was a mammoth task to build it, and you just go through it just in awe and quietly contemplate on the previous civilization that existed there. Thank you.
Cool, thank you very much, guys. And without further ado, we'll move on to the next one, the Forgotten Islands of PNG. Again, 12 nights carrying to Cairns, departing in December later this year.
Yeah, so again, different ceremonies, different kinds of sing-sings, if you like, and some of the areas on this trip, like Kavieng's famous for a particular sort of really dramatic mask, and these are some examples of from a particular ceremony at Atalakan Bay. So yeah, it just opens again. You're going through areas in Papua New Guinea on this trip, but then going a little bit further afield, and so you're really getting the variety. Because these like I said, there's 850 languages. They're quite tribal, and so it's almost like going to different countries in some sense, because there are quite dramatic differences, which make it even all that more exciting and interesting. Cool.
Yeah, again, the opportunities this trip is very much around the island, so heaps of opportunities to get in the water and just experience these crystal clear waters and the diversity of the marine life there. Hello.
Yep. Again, the whole of the community is really accepting. I guess in a very basic sense, our cruisers and some others are bringing probably what little income they do get when we go to their markets and things like that, because they are so remote. So they're really appreciative, and they really like to share. You know, some villages you go to, these little kids, there's a waterfall at the back, they just grab hold of you and lead you off, and all of a sudden you're the adopted grandparent or parent. And yeah, it's just, you know, you can feel, you know, it's not put on, made up for tourism. It's really genuine, and that's very touching. So Cuscus.
Yeah, this is a good example of one of the endemic but naturally rare animals of Papua New Guinea. It's such a remote area that some of the wildlife is only found in a small area. So an opportunity to meet one of those. Cute, eh?
So we do get cuscus, and we do have relatives of bird of paradise in Australia too, which reflect the earlier times when we were joined. Yeah, Woodlark Island in particular is a very interesting scientific case. It's where a man called Tim Flannery, you probably heard of, did a lot of field work, and because of its remote nature, a lot of new, very special species adapted to that environment were found, and sometimes we're lucky enough to see them in person, in this case. Thanks. Typical village, coastal village scene, which is sort of where I grew up. These little thatched huts and very clean village area. And in this case, you get to have a look at some traditional boat carving, canoe carving. And as I said before, this has got ceremony associated with it. And it doesn't happen usually very quickly, because things got to be done at a certain time and certain place, and probably by a certain person. So it's often the one person can't finish the entire product. Someone's got to come in and do a different bit, and someone might have to come in and do a different bit, and the whole community is involved, particularly on those bigger ones with the sails that we saw before. Thanks.
This is like the villages that we stayed in when we were working there, just staying in one of these thatched huts and sharing in just day-to-day life. And what you'll see is a sample of that. It's not going to change just because you're there, apart from the you know, preparation for that special thing that you're coming. So the dressing up for sing-sings and sometimes the opportunity to buy some arts and crafts.
This is where that venting is, under where those people are on Dobu. That's sort of close, one of the areas closer to Australia, just further on from Samurai. But yeah, you just, again, you have these limestone or volcanic cliffs, the sheer cliffs that go straight down. There's usually a nice fringing reef out to a couple hundred meters, and then quite commonly you'll just go straight down. In fact, one of the places where I grew up, which coral expeditions don't go to all the time, the vessel can't anchor. It's too deep, so they've got to continually just come off the reef and then float around out until we're ready to come back to it. That's how deep it drops off, and provides for extremely good wall diving for divers. Thanks.
Cool, thank you, guys. And rapidly move on to our penultimate itinerary. West Papua, Raja Ampat, and Micronesia. My personal favourite of these full cruise series. 16 nights Darwin to Guam, departing in August 23 and 24.
Yeah, so you're going through an amazing area, which is a combination of, like Raja Ampat here is, you know, some people say is the best diving in the world. I never deal in absolutes. It's certainly in the top 10. Renowned throughout the world from the diving fraternity, and hard to get to. So going on this cruise means you get to see something not many people do. You've got the World War II history again. You're ending up in Guam, which is American base. You're going smack through the area where the Macassan early seafarers plied their trade from Indonesia to northern Australia, seeking beche de mer or sea cucumber. So yeah, it's just a real hot pot of all sorts of exciting experiences and information and different stories of different aspects. Of course, the Dutch East Indies Company was all through there. So yeah, it's a very, very interesting area with lots and lots of things to learn and experience, and lots of good places to snorkel and have fun. Here's a part of this is probably done for the tour, for the cruise coming. It's probably a bit more ceremonial, but that's basically you're talking about seafaring people, and new vessels might be in days gone by treated with suspicion, or if they knew who they were, they come out to welcome them. It's nothing to have the coral adventurer or geographer anchored in a fjord in Oro or off an island, and all of a sudden all these canoes appear as people come out to say hi, and sometimes they've got a few things to sell you, and the kids are laughing and playing, and so it sort of is a standard welcome, I guess. It's common through the culture of those areas. Thanks.
When you go over to West Papua, you're seeing the West Papuans and the Indonesian culture. So an example here of the West Papuan people with their traditional crafts and arts for sale.
So you might also get demonstrations. Sorry, can we go back one, Will? In the background, you've got sago palm, which is a staple diet. So they'll often give you demonstrations of basic lifestyle things like that, and you might get to try some. Thanks. Sort of explains itself, really, doesn't it? Just that view, and it's just so beautiful. And you know, it's a privilege to get to these sort of areas and enjoy them. And you can see there what Will described as how the explorer operates, comes in and drops a front door, and quite easily you walk off onto, but very easily land and get to experience the different areas in that way. But yeah, you can just see how clear that water is from that shot. It's just amazing.
And lots of coconut trees. It's a constant, and the beautiful coconut milk you get to drink.
Yeah, you should get given some coconut, and it's actually, you know, coconut milk. Most people say just comes out of the coconut. Well, that coconut milk comes from grinding up and squeezing the white flesh. The actual kulau in New Guinea, which is the slightly green coconut, has a clearer water, which even got a bit of a fizz. It almost tastes like a bit of a lemonade. It's absolutely wonderful on a hot day. Thanks.
Excellent. And look, our final highlighted itinerary today, our New Guinea circumnavigation. So if you've got a little bit more time to play with, guys, it's a 35-night trip, Cairns to Darwin, departing early next year. You know, obviously covering some of the sites that we probably already discussed, but over to you guys.
Yeah, and if you come on that, you'll be with us because we're going. And yeah, what a way to sort of get a immersion into Pacific and that part of Asian cultures, just going in all those destinations, you know, from where you start on the eastern part of Papua New Guinea to when you're on the western part of the island of New Guinea, when you're delving into some of the Indonesian culture. You know, just a complete kaleidoscope of how different people live, and yeah, just amazing. And you're going around the head of the island of New Guinea is actually where, you know, some of the first I think it was Portuguese landed, and the name Papua came from, because it sort of stood for something like frizzy hair, or so. Like some of the most early explorers, Dampier, Torres, all went through those areas. So you got, again, on top of all the other local history, you got the early maritime explorers, which are amazing people that came out of Europe. So yeah, lots to see and do. Well, I worked as a deckhand with West Australian Parks at Ningaloo, keeping a track on these guys. So they'll come up to Ningaloo once a year after the coral spawn. Sometimes they're right out in deep water, and you've got to sort of bob around in 40 meters waiting for this head to come out, hoping it's one of these and not something else with bigger teeth. Whereas here, they're there all year, and they come right up to you. some of the most magnificent marine creatures, the largest sharks,
largest fish in the world.
Largest fish. They're filter feeders generally. And yeah, they're just a beautiful animal, and you just get such a good opportunity to be up close and personal with them.
And yeah, if I just interject at this point, guys, I don't know if anybody listening today is a member or follows Coral on Facebook or other forms of social media, but our recent trips up to PNG in the Coral Triangle, Raja Ampat, some of the whale shark footage was absolutely phenomenal, and it's a true highlight if we're lucky enough to see them.
Well, that's a good example. If you cast your mind back to the slides on some of the New Guinea sings, and now you're into an Indonesian, in that you can just see, even just to look at, they're so different, but equally important in their own way to the local people in their culture. So yeah, you learn a lot. If you're a closet anthropologist, this trip's for you. This is hilarious to watch. This is on the Trovians. It's actually an enactment of a ceremony where warriors are coming to take task, attack a village, and so they have the attack. It gets quite realistic. There's some missiles that are being hurled by those people on the shore to the people in the canoe. I'm glad I'm not getting hit by them. They hurt. But yeah, it's very noisy, very boisterous, and they're half of them, they're laughing like anything while they're doing it. They have a ball.
Yeah, drama and acting are very much part of the cultures there.
Yep. Here you're going up the Tufi Fjord right into the upper reaches. Nice little almost Everglades with sago palm and all sorts of palm trees, going with the traditional canoe paddled by Oro people. It's nice, peaceful, gliding along as if you were a local searching for food or something like. So yeah, it's just a really peaceful, pleasant experience. Thanks. And yeah, here we go. We mentioned the war before. This is Buna and Sanananda, which are some of the bloodiest battles in World War II in New Guinea, and basically when the Japanese got pushed back down the Kokoda Trail, this is where they set off from, and they were very well entrenched as the bases before they went up Kokoda. So when the Allies pushed them back, they were well dug in, and it was really quite bloody fighting, and many relics still exist there today. Thanks. Well, there you go. That's one of those wall dives. Fly Islands are renowned. Magnificent coral and fish life.
Turtles.
Yeah. Sorry, did you go to the question, Will?
No, this is sorry. I was too quick. This is the last slide, though.
Okay. Well, this is another example of the volcanic type nature of some of these islands, where they're little sort of reminiscent of some of the areas in Vietnam, where the little limestone islands sort of have been inundated with sea level rise, and the little outcrops in their own scattered all through the area, which increases the area available for coral to grow. So that's part of the reason you've got such great diverse coral reefs there to look at, and fish life.
Yeah, so from a geological point of view, Papua New Guinea's new, Australia's ancient. So you'll see that difference as part of the cruise.
Thanks, all.
Thank you again, Anne and Steve, for providing a little bit of local knowledge for these expedition itineraries. Whilst I've had the privilege a few years or so ago now to head off scuba diving in Raja Ampat and the Coral Triangle, there are many destinations throughout this cruise series that I haven't had the pleasure of visiting. So thank you for that. If you're looking for true expedition experience, guys, with low guest numbers, expert expedition leaders and guest lecturers, and like the sound of the kind of relaxed, informal but still very premium onboard experience, then obviously we would love to have you on board. Between Anne, Steve and myself, and there's been lots of questions popping into the phone whilst we've been whilst you guys have been presenting. So we're hopefully do our best to answer them. But again, please feel free to reach out to our excellent Cairns-based reservations and guest service teams, guys. Our website offers a wealth of additional information with detailed itineraries, departure dates, ship layouts, as many stunning images as you want to look at. Basically all the information you should require to make up your mind which of these trips or which of multiple of these trips, because many of them can be run back to back as required. But I'll now open the floor to any questions you've got. Straight away, I've got many for you, Anne and Steve, so stay on the line. But there is a couple that I want to deal with off the top. So charter flights, I chatted about it briefly at the beginning of the presentation. Unlike like flying to Bali and Denpasar or London Heathrow, some of the starts and ends of these expedition cruise itineraries are in relatively obscure destinations. So Coral have made the decision that we operate charter flights, usually from Cairns to places like Madang and Cavayeng, just to ensure that you have an option, because logistically, like I say, they're not the types of joining cities or airports that are necessarily easy. Obviously, you are more than happy to work with your travel agents as required to plan your own kind of travel plans, but we just provide that option to you guys. And again, when you call or reach out to our res team on the email or number on the screen, they're going to be more than happy to kind of guide you through the logistics there. You'll see from those 5 itineraries and at least 50% of the slides, this cruise series in PNG and Micronesia is based around the water and the phenomenal kind of genuine cultural experiences that you can have. I'd almost go as far to say that if you guys don't like dipping your toe in the water, it might not be the right cruise for you, but that's obviously totally up to you. The diving, so we have full scuba facilities across all 3 vessels in our fleet. We can provide experience, entry level experiences with scuba if you're not qualified, but we have the full snorkel gear on board. And if you are open water or equivalent qualified, there's some of genuinely the best diving in the world's hands down, basically. So whether or not you're diving on a World War II wreck or some of the genuinely epic coral across these cruise series, it's a real highlight. You're going to be spending time in the water pretty much every single day of these cruise series, so it's a real highlight compared to, let's say, our Kimberley itineraries, where swimming is strongly discouraged for the obvious crocodile reasons. But yeah, PNG, Micronesia, Raja Ampat, it's all about these cultural experiences and getting into the water. So straight away, Anne, Steve, a couple of questions for you guys right away. We touched on it briefly, but do the people receive many tourists in the areas that we kind of cruise?
It depends. Some of the bigger centres, Madang, Samurai, Alatau, do get several ships, and they are set up, Madang, Cavayeng, as well as anywhere in New Guinea, for independent travellers to come into different resorts. So it's still, New Guinea's not a huge tourism destination. It is a little bit logistically challenging, which of course these cruises completely solve that issue. But in some of the smaller islands, very few tourists, maybe one or 2 ships a year. So it's a bit of a variety, and sometimes people will come from other areas to an area we're going to, so their area gets actually no tourism pretty much. So it's a little bit of a mixed bag. And I'll just throw something in about the, sorry, go on, Bob.
No, and I was just going to say, just to add my kind of 2 cents worth as well, is our entire kind of ethos with expedition cruising is cruising to these kind of remote off the beaten path destinations, whether or not we're going, domestically or any of our international trips. And unlike some, I believe, cultural experiences that you can get elsewhere in the world, some of the images you've seen, it's genuine cultural interactions that they're not necessarily putting on for the, the cruise lines. But certainly we go to places the majority of the time, other than the Caviengs and Medangs, i.e. the joining and departure towns and cities. We really work hard to go to these kind of remote, unvisited areas. Moving on, guys. And this one we can link together. So how much PNG currency, and this is an answer with a long piece of string, but would be needed to purchase items at the markets? And do you know if there's any customs issues with bringing wood items back from these locations?
Yeah, look, I guess the currency is the kina, and it is a good idea. When the times I've been there, the ships had a limited amount they can change for you, but it's better if you come with your own and try and not just have huge the smaller notes, same as most countries you go to when you go locally, because they won't have a heap of money to change. I don't know, I'd probably, 500 kina or so. It depends if you're looking to buy carvings and things. I mean, obviously, if you're not going to do that, you need very little. It's just you might buy the odd piece of fruit or something, and the boat's completely catered for you. So your main expense would be the artifacts. Are there customs issues? Yes, there are. We can help you with that, but generally speaking, a solid wood bowl or mask is fine. It's only when there's sort of plant material mixed in that you could get back there, and you'll find customers will crush them up, and there's some very invasive species. So billums, like the string bags, are fine. They're pretty inert, but there are some traps, and certainly whoever's with you, guest lecturer or expedition crew, if in doubt, ask before you buy. This will be with you there. So there are a few things to be careful of, particularly plant material and animal products like skins.
Is it a haggling society in PNG?
No, it's to just pay.
It can be, not as much as some areas of Asia. It's not considered poor form if you say, well, is that your best price or something like that? So you can negotiate a little bit, but it's not like the adversarial almost stuff you can get into in some parts of Asia. Yeah.
If you were just paying the asking price, you would often be paying a reasonable price and very cheap still, because of their subsistence lifestyle. The little bit of income that they get from that is really important. So
excellent.
It's like most art, you don't get, if you calculate the per hour rate, it's not worth speaking of. Anyway.
And just moving on, just a bit of an overview, maybe focused on PNG, but an overview of the weather at this kind of time of year. What should our guests expect?
Look, usually, we're not in the monsoon season. Operating from the north of Australia, we pull out there because of the issues with cyclones. A lot of that area of the Pacific doesn't get much in the way of cyclone activity around closer to the equator. But it's tropical, so you can expect, we can get rained on anytime. It can be a little bit humid, but it's generally not too bad, and you're normally not far away from your next swim. So, sun protection is important, absolutely. So you don't really need much in the way of warm gear, but a little bit of rain spray jackets or something like that, and certainly not big SunSmart hats, and all that comes with SunSmart clothing. It's normally quite palatable, unless it's really humid, then you'll feel it. So drinking water, then you're getting in the water or back on the boat. Excursions aren't generally really long, so it's normally quite manageable. Sorry, Anne.
I was just going to say the SunSmart's also good culturally, because it's culturally they would tend to be reasonably well covered, so it's good for 2 two parts of the
Yep.
Yeah, and whilst we're on that, SunSmart, nice little segue. We offer marine-friendly sunscreen across all of our vessels and all of our itineraries. Basically, we want to go to these, true wilderness, pristine areas and leave them as we find them, basically. So we do provide that on board. Just a couple of more kind of frequently asked questions. Is there a dress code on board? Look, no, absolutely not. We encourage, a relaxed, smart casual. But as per the beginning of this presentation, we different to some cruise lines, we actively encourage a really informal, laid back on board experience. We don't request you dress for dinner. You can more or less wear whatever you want, basically. Do you need to bring a beach towel? Absolutely not. You can do if you want, but we provide those on board. Do I need to bring a water bottle? Absolutely not. You can if you want to bring your own, but we provide a personalized little kind of additional little gift for you guys as a water bottle, and we have multiple water refill stations on board as well, guys. I'm very conscious that I've gone over my 45 allocated minutes, and I'm sure you've got to get back to your day. So we'll probably wrap it up there. Thank you very much for joining us today. Just to summarize, this series of cruises, or series of 5 cruises, are built around some of the most stunning tropical islands, beaches, marine life, from the whale sharks to some of the most amazing snorkel and scuba options that you can find left on the planet. As you can see, it's very culturally immersive, no matter any of these cruise series. As mentioned, you can find a wealth of additional materials direct offline. You can request individual brochures, either downloaded off the website or request a physical copy as required. Please feel free to reach out to our reservations team, and hopefully we will see you on board soon. Many thanks again, Anne and Steve. I appreciate you joining us today. Thank you very much to the rest of you, and enjoy the rest of your day. Thank you.
Thank you.
See you on board.